After my rebirth, I avoided the tragedy of my previous life and married Shen Ru'an, who loved me dearly. I used to think that life would be full of ups and downs, until his mistress knelt in front of me, holding the child. As he wished, why did I calmly take a concubine into the house for him? He asked me like crazy, "You are so generous, aren't you jealous?" Because this is the end of my life with you, and you probably won't know it either. My rebirth was obtained by you praying to the gods and Buddhas with your life in your previous life. Dear one, there is a drizzle in the mountain temple, and it is lonely and cool. Only in my dream, there is an endless fire. I haven't dreamed about my past life for many years since I got married. The flames covering the palace walls, the collapsed beams and pillars, the pain that gnawed at my bones and burned my heart, the unborn child. Now, when I wake up from the dream, it seems like several lifetimes have passed. When the dark night ends, the morning light falls, and everything is quiet, the loud and pure bell sound resounds in my remaining dreams and wakes me up. I suddenly open my eyes, breathing heavily, and looked out the window with my eyes tensed. It's the spring rainy season again. Shen Ru'an said a few days ago that when the weather is fine, he will take me to Yuming Mountain for an outing. But that day was also a rainy day like this. The wind brought news of flowers, and the rain washed away the spring dust. A light drizzle fell on the streets, forming a series of rain curtains. The woman that Shen Ru'an had raised outside was kneeling weakly through the rain curtain, with a 3-year-old child standing beside her. "Please show some mercy, madam. As long as madam nods and allows my son and I to enter the mansion, I will have no complaints even if I have to be a slave to the general." I thought it was ridiculous, but when the 3-year-old child raised his face, that face, which looked 80% like Shen Ru'an, shattered all my hopes and fantasies. "Madam, Ear doesn't want to be a child without a father. Please return the father to Ear. Ear is daddy's only child, not a wild child. Madam, you are so merciful. Please have mercy on me." At that moment, I just felt that something was completely broken and could never be complete again. My heart, which had been burned to ashes, collapsed again without any warning after being patched up by someone with his life. After that day, I had lived in the temple for several days. I realized that I was escaping, and I was afraid to face it. But there needs to be a break between Shen Ru'an and me. "Madam, the general has been standing outside the temple all night, soaked in the rain. The person who came was not my personal maid Qingdai, but Zifu, the head maid beside the old woman." Seeing that I didn't say anything, she bent over and continued, "Forgive me for being so nosy, but there are some rumors about that woman in the capital right now which may be harmful to madam." I glanced at her. What did they say? That I was jealous? Domineering? Or that I was disrespectful and unfilial? Zifu was not in a hurry, but just bent her waist deeper. "I dare not." "Miss Zifu." I walked up to her and helped her up. "Don't scare me with these words. If an important official in the court secretly keeps a concubine, if it were made public, not only would it be despised by the world, but the censors in the court would also spit at it. I don't believe that the woman dared to barge in front of me like this, without someone's instigation and support. And these so-called rumors in the capital were just used to test me. The old woman didn't dare to force Shen Ru'an, so she put pressure on me and asked me to give involuntarily." Hearing this, Zifu's expression changed. She knelt down and said, "I hope madam will consider the Shen family and the overall situation more. I have been married into the Shen family for 6 years, but have not conceived any children. It is not easy for the old lady to endure this. However, the person who made me most unbearable and difficult to look back on was Shen Ru'an. The person who once swore to heaven and earth that he would never let me down in this life has already changed his heart." Qingdai held my hand and asked softly, "Miss, are we going back to the Shen family?" I wiped away the tears from my eyes and whispered, "Let me be quiet for a while. Qingdai, I need to think about how to live the rest of my life. I gave my true heart to the wrong person in my previous life. I thought I would meet a good person in this life and spend the rest of my life with him. But in the end, I realized that deep love has been unacceptable since ancient times. 02. When I came out of the meditation room in the temple, I saw Shen Ru'an standing in the rain. He was once the prince of the Marquis of Weiwu, and later the great General Longxiong. He was famous and a killing god on the battlefield. His name could stop children from crying at night. Everyone was afraid of him and respected him. But at this moment, it was like an abandoned wolfhound, staring at me stubbornly with its eyes wide open. I walked up to him, raised my head, and looked at him carefully. He was familiar with military books at the age of 6 and could fight on the battlefield at the age of 10. At the age of 15, he led 300 cavalrymen to attack the enemy camp and turned the defeat into victory. He fought for many years and won 7 battles in a row, conquered Shuaibei and Rongdi, defeated the Chanyu, pacified Xiangbei, beheaded the generals and captured the king, and won the first prize for bravery. Such people are unyielding, proud, and will not even blink an eye even if an arrow pierces their heart. Now his face is flushed and his lips are pale, telling me clearly that he is sick. Wan, have you forgiven me? He lowered his head, his handsome face was covered with water stains, and his tall figure was slightly hunched. When I was just reborn, whenever I felt uneasy or confused, I liked to stay in the temple for peace and quiet. After getting married, I never stayed at another place. Shen Ru'an didn't know why I came to stay in this temple this time. He just thought that maybe he had done something wrong and made me unhappy. Even though he didn't know whether he had done anything wrong or what he had done wrong, he would come to me and admit his mistake as soon as possible. Because I didn't see him, he just stood outside the temple all night. No matter who comes, they will sigh that General Shen really loves his wife to the bone and dotes on her as if her life. Just like after we got married, I didn't ask him to come home before nightfall every day. But he always told his friends that his wife was waiting for him to return home. Over time, rumors spread in the capital that General Shen's wife was a man-eating tigress. After hearing this, Shen Ru'an tied the man up and beat him up. Who are you calling a tigress? My wife is as beautiful as a fairy. She even speaks a little softer than others. You blind dog. What do you mean by henpecked? I am content with it. What do you know? How could he not love me? His eyes and his heart clearly love me. He just doesn't just love me. I avoided his burning gaze, looked at the misty green hills, and whispered, "Let's go home." The tall Shen Ru'an squeezed into my carriage, and the space suddenly became narrow. The man who was always as cold as iron and intimidating without being angry now had a happy smile on his face. He looked at me kindly and stretched out his hand as usual, wanting to hold my hand. My whole body tensed up, and I subconsciously moved my hand away. Don't touch me. Shen Ru'an's hand stopped in midair, his expression was stunned, and he looked at me, as if looking for an answer. After a long silence, he put down his hand and moved closer to the edge. I almost forgot that I have a lot of coldness in my body and shouldn't get too close to you. Don't be angry. I'll just stay away from you. He huddled in a corner of the carriage, his tall figure as tight as possible, looking a little cramped. I turned my head to look at him, and it was as if I saw him in my previous life again. Snow was falling all over the sky. He was dressed in purple, holding my ashes in his arms. He kowtowed every 3 steps, his steps bleeding as he knelt up the 900 steps, praying for my rebirth. I just looked at him and saw 2 little versions of myself in his inky pupils. In an instant, all the bitterness came flooding back, and I suddenly covered my face with my hands and cried softly. I cried so hard that my eyes were bleeding, and tears fell from between my fingers, as if I was crying out for all the fate between him and me in these 2 lives. He looked panicked and didn't care about anything else. Wan, don't cry. Whoever made you uncomfortable, I'll kill him, I beg you. Don't cry. 03. From delusion comes love, and then I become sick. But with such a passionate and lasting love, which spans 2 lifetimes and disregards life and death, how can I stay awake and not sink? For a long time after my death in my previous life, I was trapped beside Xiao Yuyang, watching him go crazy and unable to sleep all day. I thought I would be trapped for a long time. Until that day, Shen Ru'an came back. The Shen family has been loyal for generations, producing many famous ministers and generals, and they have been loyal to the Shao dynasty from generation to generation. No one could have imagined that Shen Ru'an would raise an army in rebellion and attack the imperial city of Chang'an. With his armor stained with blood and his sword pointed at the king, he asked, "Where is Jiangwan's body?" The king's hair was disheveled, and he looked at him and laughed with tears in his eyes. "Shen Ru'an, you are always one step late and one step behind. Jiangwan is my concubine, and she can only be my wife until she dies. Ha 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 ha." Xiao Yuyang's blood was oozing from the corner of his mouth, while Shen Ru'an's eyes were filled with tears. Later, he imprisoned Xiao Yuyang in a water dungeon and waited for execution by the sword every day. He searched the entire palace and the Xiao royal mausoleum and finally found me in the secret room of Xiao Yuyang's bedroom. I never knew he loved me so much. Later, when I recalled it carefully, I was surprised to find that there seemed to be traces of him in all the countless years of my past. I was obsessed with Xiao Yuyang, bringing him food, asking for amulets for him, and I always saw Shen Ru'an. In the white snow-white sky and earth, the young man was dressed in dark tights, with his ponytail raised high. The fierce horse under his crotch passed by at full speed, like a ball of fire running in the snow. He just glanced at me lightly, and then rode away. On the day of my wedding with Xiao Yuyang, all the guests were happy except him. He was the only one who was standing outside the crowd with a pot of wine and a sword in his hand, not knowing what he was looking at. The sedan chair on the palace road never stopped deliberately, and he would always say, "The queen is well." I was really wrong. I was wrong to believe that the word love could soothe all worldly desires and prejudices. The moon is bright alone, the wind is rising again, and my heart is like a dead tree. I picked up the pen and wrote the 2 words "Healy" on the white paper. "Madam, the general is very ill. Please go over and take a look." Mo-ing, who was beside Shen Ru'an, was outside the door, begging in a low voice. I stopped writing, was silent for a while, and said calmly, "If you are sick, please ask the doctor. I won't go there anymore." This. Mo-ing was stunned and speechless. In the past, when Shen Ru'an made a mistake, he always used such means to coax me and make me feel distressed. But I always fall for his tricks. When I hear that he is sick, I ignore everything else and run to see him. This was probably the first time I was so cold to him. I was sleeping in a trance in the middle of the night when I suddenly felt the back of my hand burning hot, and the heat woke me up. When I opened my eyes, I saw Shen Ru'an half kneeling in front of the bed, pressing his hot forehead against the back of my hand. I tried to pull it out, but he held me tightly. He murmured, "Wan, I'm really sick. I didn't lie to you. Why don't you come to see me?" He was anxious and panicked, and his tears fell on the back of my hand. "What did I do wrong? Tell me, and I will change. Don't ignore me like this. If you do this, I will go crazy." I leaned against the head of the bed, watching his tall figure crawling on the ground. Behind him hung a small and exquisite sword. He made it for me personally, and both the weight and shape were tailor-made for me. He held the sword and said like a madman, "Wan, this sword is made of black iron. It can kill people as easily as cutting mud. If I ever let you down, you can kill me with this sword." I pulled my hand away and looked around for a handkerchief to wipe it. Seeing this, Shen Ru'an carefully wiped the tears from the back of my hand with his sleeve. "Shen Ru'an, have you ever done anything to let me down?" I asked calmly. He paused, then looked up and swore, "No, I didn't do it." My chest was shaking and aching, and I scanned his expression again and again with reluctance. He was so frank and showed no guilt at all. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have been fooled by him. I turned my head, calmed down, and forced a smile. "Do you remember what you said when we got married?" Of course he remembered. "Wan, no matter when or where, I only want you. You are the only reason for me to live." "Yes, you once said that you wished to be a 1,000-year-old pine tree, but today you have already turned into a fragrant hibiscus. Shen Ru'an, your oath is worthless and can't stand the test of time." Wan, I had that strange dream again. He held my hand tightly, as if he was afraid that I would disappear. I always dream that someone took you away. Sometimes it was Xiao Yuyang, and sometimes I couldn't see his face clearly. They took you away, but they were not good to you. They all deserved to die. Fortunately, Xiao Yuyang died. When we first got married, he would dream about these things a few days a month. He would wake up in the middle of the night every time. Then, with trembling hands, he would reach out to me who was sleeping beside him and hold me tightly in his arms. I never told him that it was not a dream, it was my past life. Xiao Yuyang is the person to whom I gave my true love in my previous life, and he is also the enemy who will massacre all the members of my Jiang family once he ascends the throne. Shen Ru'an had a fever, but his arms around me were as strong as steel. He murmured drowsily, "Wan Wan, no matter what happens, you can't leave me." I used my fingers to carefully trace his brow bone, nose bridge, and thin lips. I didn't want to get married again in this life. Living with the Buddha and the green lamp by my side until the end of my life is the path I have chosen for myself. Shen Ru'an, it took me countless courage to go through this journey with you again. But you finally disappointed me. 04. The next day, I went to Jingya Hall alone. The respected old lady of the general's mansion, Shen Ru'an's grandmother, has been waiting for me for a long time. Her hair was already gray, but because she practiced martial arts when she was young, her back was straight and she didn't look old. I greeted her politely, and she sighed and told me the story. Bai Lan is that woman. You should have heard of her. She is the daughter of Minister Su. I lowered my head, thinking. In my previous life, I had indeed heard that Minister Su had a daughter. In the heavily shackled capital of Shangjing, she was different from many other noble ladies. She was bold, daring to love and hate, and attracted the admiration of many princes and nobles. But later on, I was too busy with my own affairs to pay attention to it anymore. Who would have thought that she, the daughter of a minister, would be willing to be a concubine? Miss Su's actions were also instructed by Grandma. So, what does Grandma want her granddaughter-in-law to do? I asked indifferently. She did not answer, but said, "For years ago, for honor, Bailan disguised herself as a man and followed the army to the border. She worked tirelessly and braved the cold and hardship of the border to stay by his side for a whole year. She suffered a lot and even gave birth to the child secretly. For honor, she had already broken up with the Su family. If she hadn't really had no other choice, she would definitely not want to show up. So that's how it is." It turned out to be so early. For years ago, Shen Ru'an and I had just been married for 2 years, and Su Bailan returned to Beijing 3 years ago. During these 3 years, Shen Ru'an knew, and the old woman in front of me knew. Only I am like a stupid fool. I closed my eyes and straightened up. So, what does Grandma want Jiangwan to do? She was silent for a while. The blood of the Shen family cannot be left outside. Bailan must come into the mansion. She does not want to be a concubine, so I wanted her to take her in as a co-wife. She had the self-respect and self-love to not be a concubine, yet she willingly degraded herself to become a mistress for 3 years. This is extremely contradictory and ridiculous. Wanner, I can't let down the ancestors of the Shen family. Anur is making trouble, and I can't follow him. The Shen family needs to have an heir. I suddenly laughed and asked word by word, "Old madam, have you forgotten why I can't have children? It was the last moment when I helped the third prince to seize the throne. If it wasn't for saving Shen Ru'an, I wouldn't have been trapped in the cold pond for a day and a night, causing my body to be damaged and unable to have children." However, I don't blame him. I had no intention of getting married. When he came to ask for marriage, I repeatedly stressed that if he married me, it would be difficult to have children. I would never share a husband with other women. He walked down Chang'an Street one day, parading through the streets, announcing to the world that I am the only one in this life. I only wish to win the heart of one person, and to be with him till we grow old together. Madam, this is the oath he gave me. I didn't force it. The old lady's expression changed, and after a moment, her attitude suddenly became tough. Most men's oaths are just lies when they are in love. You are stupid to believe them. Besides, it is normal for people to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. In the past few years, he has not taken any concubines or favored others for your sake. He has done his utmost to be kind and righteous. Who else can do this? Jiang Wan, you should be content. I nodded. I was really stupid. After experiencing so much devastation, I still believed in the word sincerity he expressed. Whether you want Su Bailan to be your co-wife or your principal wife, Jiang Wan will not stop you. However, if Jiang Wan wants to do anything in the future, I hope the old lady will not stop her. There was a flash of joy in her eyes. As long as you agree, I won't stop you from doing anything else. No. At this time, a loud shout came from outside the hall. Shen Ru'an's younger sister married into the Duke of Ingwa's mansion 2 years ago. Sister-in-law, you can't leave. You can't. She held my hand and actually saw my intention, her eyes full of worry. What are you doing here? Stop making trouble. The old lady frowned. I patted Shen Ning's hand and sighed softly. People's hearts are fickle, so you can't force them. I held my chest high, walked out of the yard step by step, and never looked back. In Jingya Hall, Shen Ning spoke frankly. Grandmother, if it weren't for my sister-in-law, my brother would never have gotten married. You used Su Bailan to lead him to make mistakes, making him feel anxious all day long. He hid it for 3 years, just because he was afraid that my sister-in-law would find out, but you didn't care about him at all, and just exposed the matter to my sister-in-law. Grandma. Shen Ning choked up slightly. You don't know how much my brother loves my sister-in-law. You will destroy him. The old lady clenched her crutches, nodded heavily, and said in a deep voice, You are a married woman. Don't come back if there is nothing wrong. This is the Shun family's business and has nothing to do with you. She looked outside the hall with sharp eyes. Jiang Wan's figure was slender and thin, but she had an indomitable pride. She seemed to be trying to convince herself and said to herself, It's just a Jiang Wan, just a Jiang Wan. My Nur is a real man. Why would he be ruined by a woman? 05. Shen Ru'an is a vigilant person. He must have investigated my abnormal behavior in the past few days. The concubine has lived in a house in the western suburbs for more than 3 years. I asked Xingdai to go out of the city to take a look. The house had 3 entrances and 3 exits and was fully staffed with servants and maids, just like the house of a wealthy family. Xingdai took the opportunity to strike up a conversation with an old woman who went out shopping. The old woman took an ingot of silver and chatted with her. Our master is out on business, and he always comes back once or twice a month. You have never seen our master. He is so handsome and majestic. On weekdays, we only need to serve the lady and the young master. There are so many people serving 1 adult and 1 child. Other families don't have such an easy job. Of course, the master loves us ladies. Everything we eat, wear, and use is top quality. He sends them here like running water every month. He and she had another family. He was the master, and she was his wife. It takes a whole day to go back and forth from the capital to the house in the western suburbs. When Qingdai and I arrived, it was already noon. According to Shen Ru'an's habit, he would definitely come here today. After a while, I saw through the window of the tea house's private room that the woman was dressed in green gauze and a light dark pink jacket, standing in front of the yard, tiptoeing and looking around from time to time. This is the most bustling and prosperous area in the western suburbs, so the hurried sound of horse hooves is particularly prominent. I turned my attention and saw a man in black clothes decorated with golden pythons. When he got off the horse, he threw the whip to the guard behind him. The woman jumped lightly with joy, and her mouth movements clearly indicated that she was calling him husband. Shen Ru'an had his back to me. I only saw him suddenly grab the woman's neck with one hand and said something. The woman's eyes were filled with tears. She shook her head and said miserably words like, "No, no." After a few breaths, he let go of the woman and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with his fingertips, his movements gentle and tender. Shen Ru'an bent down, picked up the child who was only as tall as his legs, and threw him up, causing the child to laugh like a silver bell. I originally thought that he had his own reasons. Maybe he just wanted a child, or maybe he was just confused for a moment. But I clearly saw that Shen Ru'an was also smiling. A kind mother, a strict father, and noisy children. What a harmonious family of three. Only I am like a joke. When Shen Ru'an seemed to have noticed something and looked over here, I quickly closed the window. With my back to the windowsill, I slowly closed my eyes, my fingertips trembling slightly, and my heart was filled with intense pain. I was out of breath, my chest was heaving, I was laughing and crying at the same time. I couldn't help asking, Qingdai, am I really so unworthy of being treated well? Otherwise, why would they always betray me? Why would they end up breaking their promises to me if they couldn't do it? Qingdai gritted her teeth, her eyes red as she supported me. Miss, this is not your fault. A man, even if his wife is a fairy or a saint, will be the same if he wants to change his mind. It's their fault. They are greedy and deserve to go to the 18th level of hell. I suddenly understood that sincerity is the most important thing. But sincerity can change in a flash. After returning to the mansion, it was not until nighttime that I heard the sound of Shen Ru'an returning home. 1-1, after I finished my military training today, I went to buy your favorite chestnut cake. Are you feeling better today? He leaned over, and the hand that had brushed past someone else gently stroked my cheek, which made me suddenly feel disgusted. When the evening breeze passed over him, I clearly smelled a slight sweet fragrance. I suddenly wanted to ask him why he lied to me like this. As long as he speaks to me frankly, I will definitely not bother him. If he wants a child or any woman, he can tell me and I will let him go. Shen Ru'an. I blinked tiredly, looked at him under the candlelight and said calmly, I regret it. It happened that at this moment, he was bending down, patiently placing my embroidered shoes in the position where I usually stepped on them. Upon hearing this, the shoes in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. He bent down, straightened his shoes with trembling hands, and raised his sleeves to wipe them gently a few times. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at me. 06. He smiled a little reluctantly, rubbing my fingers. Is the tea this morning too hot, or is the food today not to your liking? I specially asked the kitchen to add a new dish yesterday. Don't you like it? Now that the world is at peace and the war has ended, he, as a great general, is concerned about everything from my food to my daily life. Whenever I see other people's families have something new, I always get a portion for my wife. Even the current emperor once teased him, saying that he might as well change his career and become your wife's maid. Thinking of this, I turned my head and said, well, I regret drinking too much tea today, so I can't eat the chestnut cake. Perhaps he himself did not realize that after hearing what I said, he breathed a sigh of relief. As long as you want to eat, I will buy it for you every day. I forced a smile. The old lady wanted to save the Shen family's reputation and protect the woman's dignity, so she wanted to do this secretly. But I am not what you wish. In my 2 lifetimes, I have learned nothing else but this, to give others a taste of their own medicine. It happened to be a fine spring day, and Princess Pingyang was inspired to organize a polo match in her villa outside Beijing, inviting men and women from noble families to attend. Princess Pingyang is the only sister of the current emperor and is very much loved. The sun was shining brightly on the field. Pingyang was wearing a red outfit, a light green ribbon tied around her wrist, long leather boots on her feet, her hair was up in a bun, her snow-white face was slightly raised, and she was holding a baseball in one hand, bright and proud. Today's first game. I'm playing against you alone. I swung my staff and squinted at the sun. I haven't fought for many years, Princess. Please go easy on me. She smiled, turned her head, and raised her slender hand. Pingyang in her previous life was not as carefree and happy as she is now. On the contrary, she was very cautious and treaded on thin ice in the deep palace. Before her royal brother died, he begged Xiao Yuyang to spare his sister's life. Therefore, no matter how hard or difficult the life was, she would live in tears. She always said that her brother's life was still in her hands, and she was living for both of them. But later, in order to quell the war with the Chang and Rong tribes, Xiao Yuyang sent her to the border as a marriage partner despite my objections. She never enjoyed the preferential treatment of a princess, but she stood up straight and took on the mission. She said, "Sister-in-law, I am a princess." In such a barbarian land, where the father died and the son took over, she could not bear the humiliation and died in just 4 years. Just as I was about to get on the horse, Shen Ru'an strode over and stretched out his hand to me. "No need." I dodged his hand and mounted the horse in one go. He slowly clenched his outstretched hand, his eyes dimmed. I forgot that Wanwan was also good at riding and shooting in the past. I pulled the reins and looked down at him. Of course he forgot, just like he forgot why he loved me in the first place. Time always erases many memories. It is true that I haven't played polo for many years, not because I don't like it, but because the old lady doesn't like it. But she didn't say it directly because she knew Shen Ru'an valued me, so she always hinted at it. I knew that I had failed a lot in terms of offspring, and I didn't want to make things difficult for Shen Ru'an. So gradually, I stopped doing these things. The drums beat, and the horse's hooves pound. Flip and hit the ball. Turn sideways, lean over, and hit it and kick it with your back. Every move has been boiling in my mind for many years. I tightened the reins, raised the horse's head, and stared at the ball as it flew diagonally into the opposite goal. It was not until I heard cheers that I came to my senses. Princess Pingyang got off her horse and pointed at him with her staff. "Jiangwan, you are cheating." I smiled and said, "Jushi is a military skill. Princess, you should understand that all is fair in war." I turned around and saw Shen Ru'an's gaze on me, not moving at all, his eyes full of emotion. When it was his turn to go on stage, he shook my hand and said, "The biggest prize today must be our Wanwan." I didn't say anything and just looked around, until Shen Ru'an was standing outside the court, when suddenly a small person ran over like the wind, hugged his legs, and shouted loudly, "Daddy." He raised his head, and his face looked 70% like Shen Ru'an. 07. Not only me, everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Shen Ru'an, who had his back to everyone, seemed to be frozen in an instant. For a moment, people started to discuss. General Shen's son? When did his wife give birth to such a big son? Princess Pingyang frowned and asked me, "Your son?" "It's not mine." I said calmly, "It's Shen Ru'an's." The first half of the sentence was normal, but the second half, everyone present had fought within the family, so one could guess everything just by hearing the beginning. Shen Ru'an now has only one wife, no concubines or maids. Since his wife has no children, then this child is something shameful to see. At this moment, a woman rushed out from the crowd and hid the child's head tightly in her arms. Su Bailan looked at me, and I met her eyes. This was the first time I looked her in the eye. There was anger, humiliation, and unwillingness in her eyes. She probably guessed that today's letter was written to her by me imitating Shen Ru'an's handwriting. Suddenly, someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Isn't this the daughter of Minister Su who passed away? Wasn't it said that she died of a serious illness a few years ago? How come she has a child with Shen Ru'an now? Don't you understand? Having a child with an adulterer is so shameful." It happened that another daughter of Minister Su was also present today. Seeing this scene, she was already ashamed and did not want to be pointed at, so she quietly withdrew. I looked at Shen Ru'an calmly, and when I saw him slowly turn around, his eyes seemed to suddenly become cold, which actually made me hold my breath for half a breath. He bent down, picked up the child, grabbed the woman's arm, and strode out. From beginning to end, he never explained anything to me, never comforted me. I pinched my palms and looked calmly at his back as he walked away. A farce disrupted the beautiful scenery, and Princess Pingyang lost her mood to play. She leaned lazily on the couch and said coldly, "How dare you cause trouble in my palace?" I smiled and said, "Then how is the princess going to punish me?" She waved her hand, dismissing everyone around her, and then spoke. "If you can't laugh, don't laugh. It's uglier than crying." I stopped smiling and looked out the window with a lonely expression. She propped up her chin and said, "You have ruined the reputation of the general's mansion and Shen Ru'an this time. From now on, he will be embarrassed when he goes out in the capital." I curled my lips and said, "Does it make me proud if my husband keeps a mistress? I don't even care about my own reputation, so why should I care about his reputation? Since I want a divorce, I want to do it clearly. I want everyone to know that it was Shen Ru'an who betrayed me first. It was Shen Ru'an who was treacherous." Pingyang's voice was somewhat empty. His oath in the past was known to everyone in the streets and alleys. I really admired such a man and thought that I would find such a man in the future. It's a pity that men are unreliable after all. I glanced at her and asked, "Are you still worried about Yuanling?" 5 years ago, Princess Pingyang fell in love with the top scholar and Wang Shu at first sight at the Qianqiu banquet, and her love was known to everyone. But the top scholar was like an ice cube. He refused several times and remained unmoved. It was not known when Pingyang suddenly changed her mind and stopped chasing after him. Instead, she had many lovers. Later I heard that Wang Shu had abandoned his literary character, willingly lowered himself to a lowly status, and even offered himself to be a concubine. Pingyang smiled, shook his head and said, "I can't be attached to those who left me. Those who leave me should not be kept, nor should they be missed." 08. When I returned home, Shen Ru'an was still not there. Only the old lady was waiting for me in the hall. The first thing he said when he saw me was, "Jiangwan, the Shen family treated you well, but you are so vicious. You clearly promised me." I stood outside the door and bowed in vain. "Old madam, I have never broken my promise to you. I have never stopped you from marrying or taking concubines for him." Okay. She said in a deep voice. "In that case, I will let Enur marry Bailan. I just think that they have been in love for a long time, but it was just because of someone's ulterior motive that they were hindered, making her suffer." "Grandma." Shen Ru'an's voice sounded as cold as a jade strike at night. Please don't let me make further mistakes." "Unit." Shen Ru'an's hands trembled as he tried to touch me, but stopped just short of me. "You knew this a long time ago, didn't you?" I looked into his red eyes, which were filled with regret and affection that were enough to drown one's heart. "Not as early as you. After all, you met 4 years ago, and everyone who should have known it 3 years ago already knew it." He grabbed my wrist tightly and swore, "I won't let her into the mansion. You are the only one in my heart, Wan." He was so scared that he crushed my wrist with enough force. I tried to find a trace of hypocrisy in his eyes, but found that it is possible for a person to be both unfaithful and affectionate at the same time. He loves me, but that still can't stop him from being unfaithful to me. The cool breeze brought the night's dampness, and the chill attached to my skin. Even my internal organs felt cold. I asked, "Why did you hide it from me?" His face turned pale, and his fingers were clenched until they turned white. "I didn't mean to hide it from you. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want you to be sad." He approached me, disregarding his dignity and repeated over and over again, "You can hit me or scold me, but just don't leave me, okay?" The old lady quickly dismissed her attendants and looked at him with disappointment. It was obvious that his soul was screaming with fear, afraid that I wouldn't want him, but why would he hide it from me and lie to me? Yes, he was gambling. He was gambling, and the matter between him and me was settled, and I had nowhere to go. He was gambling and he had a deep friendship with me, so I could forgive him. He was just doing what a man should do in this world. He was also gambling that my youth was over and that I didn't want to cause any trouble and suffer the consequences for him. I asked him, "The old lady asked me to ask you, are you willing to marry Miss Su as your co-wife?" He seemed to feel that discussing another woman with me like this exposed his shamelessness, and he endured it. "She is not worthy. My Shen Ru'an's wife will only be you." I said calmly, "Then take me as a concubine and choose a day to enter the mansion. How about that?" He suddenly looked up at me, and after a long while he held my hand again. "I promised you that I would only give her a name. She will live in Shiyuan from now on and will not see you. We will just pretend that this person does not exist and continue as before." I always had a last glimmer of hope for him, but I didn't expect that he actually agreed. I looked at the red candles burning in the hall. My heart was long, but the flame was short, and I shed tears towards them. Even in his crying, crying that the colorful clouds in my life are easily dispersed and the glass is fragile. Seeing this, the old lady hurriedly said, "In this case, Bylan's child will also be registered under Warner's name. You are the head lady of the house, and you are unable to have children. After all, this is a nurse's first child and the eldest grandson. It can't be registered under the name of the concubine." Shen Ru'an interrupted her. "That's enough. Do you really want to drive us to death?" The old lady pursed her lips, looked stunned, and dared not say anything more. 09. Originally, many families regarded Shen Ru'an's statement that he would never take a concubine as a joke. Now, the news that Shen Ru'an wanted to take a concubine had spread out, and it had become a real joke. Sue Bylan's etiquette for entering was very simple. She was carried in from the side door in a sedan chair. Maybe I was too calm a night. She entered the house. Shen Ru'an was drunk and kept asking me why I could give him to someone else so easily, and why I wasn't jealous. I looked at the words in the book and read them to myself word by word. You should be like a rock, and I should be like a reed. The reed is as strong as silk, but the rock, even the rock, can be easily bent. Because I have already shed tears for you and felt heartbroken. Now, it's nothing but the surging Jinshui River, and I bid you farewell forever.
10.
Early the next morning, Sue Bylan came to find me in an ostentatious manner. Her hairpins and rings were dazzling, and her body was covered with pearls and jade, which was far from the weakness and humility she had that day. She was very polite, but her manner was inappropriate. "Madam, could you please spare ear? I have been his mother and son for many years, and it is hard for me to part with him." She bit her lip and said, "If you really like children, I can have another one with you, and I will bring the baby to my sister when it is born." She clearly knew that it would be difficult for me to have children, and she said this on purpose. "I'm just feeling depressed, so I came here to use the wind to help relieve the blocked air in my chest. It seems like my depression today won't go away." I chuckled and said casually, "Since you like to have children, then have as many as you want. I'll hold as many as you want. If I can't raise them all, I'll sell them all." Hearing this, her pupils suddenly dilated and her face turned pale, as if she was extremely scared. Anyone who heard this would know that it was just a bluff. According to the laws of this dynasty, even concubines cannot be sold at will, let alone children born to concubines. Even if you are the mistress, you should treat concubines' sons and daughters equally to avoid gossip. But she seemed to really believe that I would sell out my illegitimate sons and daughters at will in the future. She took a few steps closer, her eyes bloodshot. "How dare you?" Before I could react, I saw her pulling my wrist and leaning to the side, accompanied by a voice. "Bylan." She actually fell straight into the pool in front of her. A tall figure passed by me without hesitation and dived in. The reaction in a hurry cannot deceive people. Shen Ru'an grabbed her into his arms, with anxiety in his eyes. It wasn't until he hugged her and unexpectedly met my eyes that I felt panic-stricken. I didn't look at him again, turned around, and left. Shen Ru'an behind him seemed to want to catch up, but was tripped. The woman said softly, "Don't blame me, my dear. It was my own carelessness." Such a crude trick is useless to me, but it may not be useful to Shen Ru'an. 11. When I turned the corridor, I was not paying attention and bumped my leg with something. "Madam." "Young master, call mother quickly." The little maid grabbed the 3-year-old child and knelt down hurriedly. "She is not my mother. She is the bad woman who stole my father away." He stretched out a finger and pointed at me aggressively. Qing Dai beside him said angrily, You are simply—" I stopped her. She was just a 3-year-old child. How would she know what to say or do if she wasn't taught by someone? If I really wanted to argue with a child, I would be really stupid. "Take him and go back to Shiyuan," I said in a cold tone, leaving no room for negotiation. At this time, a maid came from behind. It was Sue Bylan who brought her into the mansion. "Young master, let's go." I heard her mumbling in a low voice, "She is just a hen that can't lay eggs. In the future, we, the lady and the master, will have the final say in this mansion." I glanced at her with a sneer on my lips. Qingdai, slap your face. Qingdai was already furious. She went up to hold down the maid, raised her arm and slapped her twice, knocking out one of her teeth. At this time, people were already looking over here. I said in a cold voice, "You are disobeying your superiors and are not knowing whether to live or die. You will be expelled from the mansion today." Su Bailan is not strict in managing his subordinates, is not good at educating his children, and offended the nobles. You will be punished for multiple crimes. You will be punished in the ancestral hall and are not allowed to leave the courtyard for 3 months. After walking a few steps, I turned around and looked at the old woman with a bleak face. "Oh, by the way, remember to tell your wife that today's punishment was not imposed by the mistress of the Shen family, nor by the general's wife. It was imposed by Jiangwan, the Marquis of Lingguang, who is personally appointed by the emperor. If she has the courage, come and tell me." The one and only Marquis of Lingguang in this dynasty so far was conferred the title personally by Xiao Jinyang on the day he ascended the throne. That day, I heard that Su Bailan cried to Shen Ru'an because of the punishment, but he smiled cruelly and said to her, "Even if she wants you to die, you should have no regrets." Late at night, he stood outside the door and asked me in a somewhat happy tone, "Wanwan, you punished Su Bailan today because you care about me. You still have me in your heart." I didn't answer, but closed the door, sat at the table, and put my fingerprints on the divorce documents that had already been written. 12. When he saw the divorce letter, he seemed calm, yet crazy. "Is it because of taking a concubine? But you clearly agreed to this." "Well, if you don't want to, I won't take a concubine, and I won't take anyone else," he said in a deep voice. "If you don't like her, I can drive her away or kill her, Wanwan. I will not agree to a divorce." I looked at him quietly, my words inevitably vicious. "If you really wanted to kill her, you wouldn't have waited 3 years and let me make the choice, letting me be the bad guy. Shen Ru'an, you are so smart. How could you not see that she was a woman disguised as a man back then, but you indulged her? We spent a year together at the border, from indifference to gradual collapse. During this whole year, have you ever remembered me in the capital and the oath we made? Yes, after she ran away, you thought that no one would know about this matter, and you could bury these mistakes with peace of mind. Have you ever felt a little ashamed when facing me over the years? 3 years ago, you met her again. At that moment, she was holding your child in her arms. What were you thinking when you looked at that child, who looked like you? Did you feel lucky that you didn't have to have children of your own because of me? Because of this child, you also forgave his mother. Did you feel that your love for her was as deep as the sea? Look, in order not to make Jiangwan sad, I tried hard to hide it from her. I loved her so much." "No, it's not like that, Wanwan." He choked in his throat, his mouth trembling constantly, tears in his eyes bursting like a dam. "I was just curious for a moment. I've never met such a strange woman. The night I was with her was an accident. I don't love her. I only love you, Wanwan. I only love you." I looked up and forced back my tears. "Shen Ru'an, let's stop here. No matter how far we go, this is the end of our friendship." I looked at his back as he stumbled away, and suddenly I recalled my past life. The emperor held great power, yet he spared no effort to find a way for me to have an afterlife, kneeling before heaven and earth and worshipping the gods and Buddhas. The Tsongshan Mountains are covered with snow, and lanterns are lit to continue the day. In Jiahua Temple, the best temple in the world, the eternal lamp burned for 99 days. The wind was strong and the snow was heavy. Shen Ru'an knelt before the Buddha. If the gods and Buddhas have spirits, Shen Ru'an is willing to sacrifice all his lives in exchange for a chance to start over again. May Jiangwan meet a good man and live a worry-free life. As for me, Shen Ru'an, I don't care about life or death. If you knew, you have spent your whole lives only to get one Jiangwan. You will regret it. 13. Early the next morning, I prepared my horse and entered the palace. In this world, Shen Ru'an is not the only one who has the merit of following the dragon. I, Jiangwan, helped the current emperor seize the throne in the past, and he still owes me a promise. Mrs. Wan, watch your step. Thank you, Eunuch Gao. Gao Sheng is Xiao Jinyang's personal eunuch and has followed him for many years. You are embarrassing me. In the past few years, except for palace banquets, I have not seen Xiao Jinyang again. When I arrived at the imperial study, the emperor had already finished his morning court session. He had taken off his dragon robe and put on a clean and bright white brocade robe, with his hair tied up with a fine jade crown. Xiao Jinyang turned around. He was tall and handsome, with a look of disdain in his eyes and deep pupils. His lapels were filled with ambergris. Now that he was in his prime, he had become more resolute and steady. In the previous life, the situation in the palace changed suddenly after the prince died of a serious illness. However, Xiao Jinyang and his siblings' mother died early, so they were not favored and had no one from their mother's family, so they had no advantage in seizing the throne. Therefore, even if he has read all the books in the world and has great talent for governing the world, he can only hide his shortcomings and not want to get involved in the fight. With the support of the Jiang family, Xiao Yuyang quickly gained a foothold. It was not until he ascended the throne that he killed his brothers one by one for absurd reasons. The young Xiao Jinyang had been trapped in the Deep Palace for a long time and retreated to Fuyang. His fighting spirit had long been worn down, and he only wanted to protect his younger sister. In the end, he was still beheaded in the market on the charge of stationing troops for treason. In fact, I should have understood at that time that Xiao Yuyang was a stubborn, self-righteous, and heartless person. Unfortunately, it was too late, and the family ended up being broken up. And when I started over again in this life, I took advantage of every opportunity and planned every step carefully. The first step was to choose Xiao Jinyang to be the master of this world. Facts have proved that he is a wise and capable ruler. The world is in his hands, the people live in peace, and the rivers and seas are peaceful. Xiao Jinyang's voice was gentle and low, interrupting my recollection. In fact, I have always been curious. Why did you choose Shen Ru'an wholeheartedly? He had a smile on his face, and it seemed like he was just asking casually. It turns out that I made the wrong choice, didn't I? It's not your fault. It's him who let you down. It doesn't matter. I came here to ask the Emperor 2 things. You say. First, please ask your Majesty to issue an order to allow me and General Shen to divorce. Second, I heard that the order to select female officials has been decided. Can I ask to go to the people to investigate and do my part for your Majesty? He pondered. For the first thing, I can promise you. For the second thing, investigating the sufferings of the people is not an easy task. Your Majesty, I am not afraid. Please grant me your permission. I should do something worthwhile in this life. Okay, the female official system was originally your suggestion. I am just listening to your good advice, and I feel relieved to leave it to you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Now that the matter is done, it is inconvenient for me to stay here for long, so I'll take my leave. Xiao Jinyang said in a gentle voice. I'll have someone escort you out of the palace. Gao Sheng, arrange for someone to escort Miss Jiang. After Jiang Wan left, Xiao Jinyang sat behind the desk, rubbing his jade ring from time to time. A ray of setting sun leaked in through the window, shining on the dancing scent of ambergris incense.
Gao Sheng,
He suddenly asked, who do you think is the most like Jiang Wan in the harem? Gao Sheng bent over and counted carefully. Concubine Zhuang's eyebrows and eyes are the most similar, and Concubine Yu's voice is 80% similar, but in terms of demeanor and temperament, it has to be the newly entered Concubine Ru. Xiao Jinyang was indifferent and whispered, I am superficial. They're similar in appearance only. Jiang Wan is still Jiang Wan. In the past, his second brother bribed people to trap him in a fire. It was Jiang Wan, dressed in black, riding a horse, who single-handedly pulled him up. There is no one like her anymore. Gao Sheng hesitated. Miss Jiang will be divorced soon. If the emperor likes it, why not? Xiao Jinyang shook his head. Even Shen Ru'an can't do it. How can I dare to desire her? I will only end up with a couple with resentment. I am truly thankful that Jiang Wan and I are only close friends and not husband and wife. Goldman Sachs. The servant is here. Please prepare your writing. I will write the decree myself. 14. As soon as my carriage stopped, the imperial edict of divorce arrived. However, Shen Ru'an refused to accept the order. Gao Shen glanced at him. Old Madame Shen looked at her grandson, who seemed to have lost his soul, and with trembling hands, she took the order for him. I originally thought that with the look on Shen Ru'an's face just now, he would be blocked from leaving the Shen family. But the servants came to report that just a moment after Gao Shen left, when Shen Ru'an stood up, he was so frightened that he vomited blood and fell to the ground. So, before he woke up, I took Qingdai with me and got on the Jiang family's carriage. I did not return to the Jiang mansion, even though my parents and brother insisted on taking me back. I haven't been out much in these years, but I have never left behind any farm or private house. I chose a house in Shunmen Lane and waited for the imperial edict to arrive before setting off to the south of the Yangtze River. Qingdai was very strong. While cleaning up, she asked me, "Miss, are you done with it?" She was asking, should I just let go of Shen Ru'an, stop pestering her, and stop caring about her? I looked at the purple locust tree in the courtyard and whispered, "Between him and I, 2 lifetimes have been equaled." Qingdai shook her head, looking puzzled. Xiao Jinyong assigned a secret guard to me to guard outside the yard. But I didn't expect that Shen Ru'an could get through the layers of guards and kidnap me. However, after not seeing each other for 2 days, he looked very thin. Ignoring my struggles, he placed me on the sandalwood chair. He squatted down and tapped my cheek with his finger. "Wanwan, how could you leave so heartlessly? Do you really not want me anymore?" I kicked him and turned away. "Are you crazy? The imperial decree of divorce has been issued, and you are defying it." He slowly stood up, his tall figure covered me, and he retracted all the sorrow on his face. At this moment, he became the ghost-faced general who could cut down thousands of bones with a single blow of his sword. I was shocked, and then I heard him say, "What if I disobey the order?" His smile was cold, his tears were not yet dry, half human, half demon. "Wanwan, I won't agree. For all eternity, I will be yours. Even in death, our bodies must be linked together. There is no possibility of divorce. Forget it in this life." Shen Ru'an has never been a good person. In his previous life, he was able to destroy the Shao dynasty by himself, and he will not be a coward in this life either. 15. I really regretted it in my heart. If I had known that Shen Xian was so crazy, I should have killed him with a knife. Shen Ru'an placed me in a yard somewhere unknown, and that night he came back drunk. He pressed his face tightly against the back of my hand, and hot tears fell one by one. "Wanwan, I just made a mistake, so you can't forgive me? Since the accident of drugging 4 years ago, I have never touched Su Bailan again. I kept her because of my grandmother's wish. She threatened me with her life, and I had no choice. I looked at him in silence for a long time before asking, "Then can you swear on my life that you have never been tempted by Su Bailan?" In the long silence, I seemed to hear the sound of broken bells again, as if from another world. He didn't dare, he was moved. Those who abandon me should not be loved or kept. Shen Ru'an, let me go, and let yourself go. Our fate as husband and wife has ended. Don't force it. His eyes were red and he said stubbornly, "What if I insist on asking for it?" "Don't make me hate you, Shen Ru'an. Then you can hate me. Hating me for loving me is better than you ignoring me. Wanwan, since you don't want to be my legal wife, then you can stay here for a long time, okay?" My eyebrows jumped and I felt something was wrong. The next second, he clamped my jaw with 2 fingers and attacked me aggressively. I struggled and retreated, and when I had nowhere to retreat, I felt despair. But Shen Ru'an in front of him suddenly covered his head and rolled to the ground in pain. I immediately jumped out of bed and ran out. He reached out and grabbed the hem of my clothes tightly, and I heard him mumbling. One moment it was, "Don't go, Wanwan." The next moment it was, "Let her go." I didn't have time to think about it. I just pulled out my skirt and walked out. 16. After that day, I moved back to the Jiang mansion. It was said that Shen Ru'an had fallen into a coma, and both the imperial physicians and folk doctors were helpless. Only one doctor said that this was a heart disease and needed to be treated with heart medicine. It was not until old lady Shen brought Su Bailan to my house that I knew what this heart medicine was. Kneel down. Apologize to Wanner. You did something wrong. You should make amends to her. Old Madam Sue knocked Sue Bylan's knee with her crutch and asked her to kneel down to me. Sue Bylan knelt down, then stood up and stared at me. Since I came here, I have never knelt before anyone. Today I kneel down to you and beg you to go see Ru'an and save him. She looked at me unwillingly. I have loved him for so many years, but after he fainted, he only remembered his name as Jiangwan. The old lady interrupted her. That's enough, Wanner. Go see her. The doctor said that if he doesn't wake up, he will be a disabled person forever. You don't want to see him like this. You have always felt sorry for him. I shook my head. No, there's no relationship between him and me anymore. Old lady Sue couldn't catch her breath. Do you really want an old woman like me to kneel down before you go to see him? I shook my head again. It's no use kneeling down. I said I won't go. A layer of mist gradually gathered in her cloudy eyes. She hunched over, slowly threw away her crutches, and was about to kneel down. My brows tightened, and I quickly said, Qingdai. Qingdai was quick to pick her up and put her on a chair. Seeing that I was determined not to agree, she felt that there was no point in staying any longer. The old lady threw down a sentence. Jiangwan, I don't believe that you can control his life like this. Naturally, I don't want Shen Ru'an to wake up. I don't know what a madman like him will do after he wakes up. 17.
The old lady is right.
Shen Ru'an can wake up without me. But after he woke up, he seemed to be really crazy. Not only did he use the sword to slash himself, he also slashed at everyone he saw, and he even didn't recognize his own grandmother. The old lady locked him in the yard and stood outside it crying. Only now did she feel deeply regretful. She regretted why she had let Sue Bylan in that day. She didn't care about her reputation and divorced Sue Bylan on behalf of Shen Ru'an and sent Shen Yi to the clan in the countryside. She went to Jiangwan's house in person and begged her to come back. This time, she hunched over and bent down sincerely. But that woman, once she put it down, never picked it up again and never looked back. Old Lady Shen saw that Shen Ru'an was like a trapped beast, attacking her every day, so she had to have someone lock him up with an iron chain. When she approached, her grandson's eyes were red and he begged her with trembling lips. Grandma, give one back to me, please. Old Lady Shen spat out a mouthful of blood, her white hair fluttering, and she was left with only a skeleton that was struggling to hold on. She touched his head with trembling hands. What on earth had she done? It shouldn't have been like this. 18. Everyone said that General Longxiong, the former god of war, feared by everyone and hated by ghosts, had gone crazy. Only Shen Ru'an knew that he was not crazy. Since he woke up that day, it seemed as if there was another person in his body. His soul and will were struggling against another soul, and even if he tried his best, he couldn't stop him from appearing. He couldn't remember anything when his body was occupied by another soul. However, every time he took over the consciousness of this body and woke up, he would find wounds of varying sizes on his body, some fatal, some venting, with the blood dried up. He suddenly realized that the other soul in his body was trying desperately to kill him. Perhaps due to insufficient control, the soul struggled hard but was unable to kill his body with one blow.
He couldn't die.
His Wanwan was still in this world, and he was still waiting for her to change her mind. How could he bear to die? So, he fought the demons in his body every day. He could not lose. If he lost, he would no longer exist. He wanted to live and find Jiangwan while he was still alive. 19. On the day I left Shangjing, Xiao Jinyang left the palace in disguise. When we said goodbye at Jiaoguang Road, I asked him to bow and say goodbye, but he supported me with his hand. This trip might take many years. I whispered, Your Majesty, please take care. He stared at me with burning eyes, stepped onto his horse, put his hands behind his back, and said gently, Go ahead. As long as I am in power, wherever you go, there will be peace and prosperity and no disasters or misfortunes. I was moved and looked at him. He raised his hand and patted the horse gently, saying, Go, I'll wait for your good news. The sound of horse hooves rang out, and I ran into the team, running towards another path in this life. Over the years, I have traveled through mountains, seas, rivers, lakes, mountains, rivers, and hills. In spring, I went to a fishing village along the coast. There were women there who knew astronomy and the laws of the sea and could predict the changes in the wind and the climate of the seasons. In midsummer, I traveled to the misty area south of the Yangtze River, where there were women who were skilled in farming and mulberry planting and were proficient in agricultural activities. During the Baizong period, I went to Luosha in the west. There were women there who were good at riding horses and were not inferior to men at all. At the end of the year, I passed through the northern country, where there were women who could write beautiful articles and had insight into the affairs of the world. The position of female official is not just an empty position, but one that truly holds power and rank. Over the years, I have gradually written down everything I have seen and heard and reported it back to Beijing. At this point, the selection of female officials has reached the second round and is now entering the third round.
20.
That day, I sent away all the girls who came to Beijing for selection. I hadn't rested for several days and I dreamed of Shen Ru'an at night. I heard that he had been crazy for many years. 2 years ago, old lady Shen saw him trying to poke his own eyes with a knife, and she fell to the ground and died of a heart attack. Now, there is only a madman imprisoned in the general's mansion. I have never dreamed of Shen Ru'an, but in my dream tonight, I saw him so clearly. When I saw him, it was clearly him, but not like him. In other words, he is more like Shen Ru'an in his previous life. He was very close to me, but I didn't feel any rejection in my dream. Through a thin layer of mist, his hand seemed to touch me, and his eyes were filled with sadness and pain. He looked at me for a long time, as if he wanted to engrave me firmly in the depths of his soul and never forget me again. It's like it would take all my life to see this one side. He whispered, "Wan Wan, I'm sorry." I shook my head. I couldn't speak in my dream. If I could, I would tell him that the mistakes Shen Ru'an made in this life were not your fault. The tears in his eyes fell drop by drop. Anyone who betrays you deserves to die, even me. I vaguely felt that he would disappear forever in this vast world. I reached out to grab him, and his voice became increasingly hollow. It took me many years. I helped you kill him. From now on, Shen Ru'an will never let you down again. Waking up from a dream, I raised my hand and touched my wet cheek. I felt as if it was a dream, but also not a dream. But I have been reborn once, and I believe in matters of gods and Buddhas more than anyone else. The next day, I sent someone back to Beijing quickly to find out the news. 21. While waiting, I unexpectedly met Sue Bailan in Xiaoan County. To be precise, she found me on purpose. She looked miserable and her clothes were tattered. When she saw me, she knelt down without hesitation. "Jiangwan, I admit my mistake to you," she said to herself. "I was really wrong. I admit my mistakes for everything I did. I shouldn't have insisted on interfering when I knew he had a loved one. You never blamed me from beginning to end. You are a good person, right? If you have heard of me, you would know that the daughter of Minister Su beat all the other contestants at the autumn poetry contest, and I can also make fragrant pancreas. As long as I want, I will have no worries about no one loving me, even if I am a prince or a nobleman. But I didn't make a mistake on purpose. You know, people can't control the birth of love. I love Shen Ru'an. This kind of love makes me lose my mind. Even if he hates me and treats me like a worn-out shoe, I don't care. But he only loves you. During the years when he was crazy, I went to see him secretly. Even though he was not in his right mind, he didn't want me to get close to him. What she said was incoherent, and I couldn't hear it clearly, but I knew that something must be wrong. I frowned and asked, "What do you want to say?" "I beg you." She grabbed my skirt tightly. "Please don't kill me. I really know I was wrong, Jiangwan. Shen Ru'an, I don't love you anymore. I'll give you back. Just please don't kill me." "I never meant to kill you." I brushed her hand away. "If I wanted to kill you, you would have died the moment I found you," she said sternly. "Impossible. Shen Ru'an has gone mad. Apart from you, who else can have the will to kill me?" "Jiangwan, what do you want me to do in order for you to stop killing me?" She seemed to be going crazy, and I didn't want to argue with her any further. But in the next second, an extremely strange sound was heard. The Space-Time Administration Bureau notifies that the 108th space-time loophole Traveler Sue Bylin has been blocked by the strong will of the powerful energy person in the space-time. The repatriation order has been changed to obliteration. Please be aware of this. Please be aware of this. I turned my head suddenly to look at her. No wonder Shen Ru'an said she was weird. No wonder she became a different person overnight. It turns out that she is not from here, just like I came from my previous life. And she must have come from somewhere. I said calmly, your so-called admission of fault does not mean that you really feel you are wrong. You just had no choice but to do it in order to survive. She shook her head fiercely. No, I have received the most advanced and high-level education, and I have also denounced those who are mistresses on the internet. However, when I got here, I made excuses for myself, and I convinced myself that it was normal for ancient people to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. She paused, with a struggle in her eyes, and finally said, it should be this way. I was just too unlucky to meet you. I accept my fate, admit defeat, and admit my mistakes. She still doesn't understand that she is nothing to me. Between Shen Ru'an and I, it has always been just, the red string is broken, the bright mirror is cracked. He carried it, and I abandoned it. As for Sue Bylin, I never took it to heart. True love is hard to change. Even if it is not Sue Bylin, there is Lee Bylin. It is only Shen Ru'an who has changed. I said lightly. Even if it is my will, I would not bother to kill you. The words were as sharp as frost hitting the grass and trees. I have always known that indifference is the most powerful weapon. She stumbled away, mumbling, It's Shen Ru'an. He wants me to be annihilated for eternity. I have to stop him. I have to stop him. 22. What she didn't know was that Shen Ru'an was dead. On the 3rd day after Sue Bylin left, I received a letter via carrier pigeon. Shen Ru'an was trapped like a mad beast for many years and finally died in his own hands. The day before he died, he walked out of the side yard, packed himself some clean clothes, and walked into the room where he and I used to live. He took the small cold iron sword that he had made for me in the past and pierced his heart with the sharp blade, causing blood to flow like a river. He hung his head and leaned against the bed, like a blood monk in meditation, and there was no sound. I held the letter in my hand and suddenly remembered the dream I had a few days ago. No, that was not a dream. Shen Ru'an, kill Shen Ru'an. He killed his last life with his own hands. The sea of stars flows, and the years become monuments. From then on, there was no more Shen Ru'an in this vast world.